Hello and welcome to the Grad Dialogue. To say that he was born with whiskey in his veins may be a stretch, but distilling bourbon has been Jacob Call's family for over 3 generations. And as a 7th generation Kentuckian, I guess you're born and raised in Bardstown, the whiskey town, I guess. Jacob graduated from Murray State University with a degree in business administration, and he started his career in banking, rising all the way to the chief operating officer. But then the familiar call came, and which is to go back to the spirits business. This is really nice tidbits about Jacob. His grandfather and father has spent many years working at the Jim Beam, and his father went on to become the master distiller at the Florida Caribbean Distilleries, where Jacob joined the team in 2007. He had held various senior management positions at the Caribbean distilling positions, and then he joined the Terrasentia, I believe is the right pronunciation, in the fall of 2014, and to oversee the renovations. And as a master distiller, he oversees all aspects of whiskey production and warehousing for the facility. Jacob, welcome on the Grad Dialogue. I know you work long hours at the O.Z. Tyler Distillery, but when I see you as your neighbor, coming straight and mowing the lawn and doing everything you need to do, so now you know what is important in life, and along with your distilling business and everything else.
Thank you.
I remember the time that when O.Z. Tyler came to Owensboro, and there was a groundbreaking at the Madley distillery area. And I happened to be, doing groundbreaking and everything else. And that was, I think, 2015.
Yeah.
And then just last week, I stopped by at your gift shop to get a gift from one of my friends who's retiring. And I saw, it's like, am I already on the bourbon trail? Then come to find out we are the bourbon trail. So it's a great, great asset now for Owensboro, O.Z. Tyler. It's going to tell us what brought the Terrasentia to Owensboro and why Medley location?
Sure. So the old Medley Distillery is a very historic distillery. Dates back to 1885. Was shut down for about 25 years when we purchased it, and we had a big bourbon boom that was taking off. So much so that we had a problem with supply. We couldn't source enough bourbon for our bulk business and our bottling business. So we went on the look for a distillery, and big facilities like that don't come available very often. So we went ahead and purchased it in late 2014, and then started our renovations, broke ground in 2015. Took us most of 2015 and part of 2016 to get all the renovations complete. We started distilling bourbon September of 2016.
Going back, I just realized you were almost CEO of a bank, and then back to the spirits and everything else. I mean, that's not a normal.
No. So my grandfather worked at Jim Beam. My dad worked at Jim Beam, and I went into banking. Kind of worked my way up from the bottom. I was with Republic Bank. And we ended up buying a bank in Florida, and I moved down to help oversee the merger. And about that time, my father became a little more involved at Florida Caribbean Distillers. He was the general manager and really in charge of more of the operations. So he asked me if I wanted to get in the spirits business, and being a little kid and growing up around it, and it was kind of a little bit of a dream come true, I guess.
So it wasn't like you grew up with the stills in the backyard or something,
No. It was more business oriented than that. But I did always have the really bad jobs when I was in college. I worked on the bottling line, stacking cases. I've cleaned tanks, and so I've done all the bad stuff too.
But at the same time, you got the experience in all different levels of bourbon distilling and everything.
Yeah, I did everything from purchasing to distilling. We made a lot of rum and cane spirits and citrus spirits. And I knew Earl Hewlett, our CEO who bought the property, and I used to sell him rum. And I knew he bought this place, and I kind of always wanted to come back to Kentucky to make bourbon. So it was kind of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to get to take this old historical facility that with so much history and get to bring it back to life and kind of put my stamp on it.
Yeah, I know that when you opened up, and then I think within a short time, maybe within 6 months or a year or so, I had a group of Czech Republic visitors,
Right,
and you gave us a tour, and that was before the major expansion and everything else. But one thing that comes to my mind was that the different technology. This is a typical different than making bourbon than what you see in Bardstown and Maker's Mark and other places. Can you kind of describe that?
Yeah, what I tell people is if you go on a tour of our facility, you'll see a very traditional distillery. We make bourbon traditionally, just like all the other big distilleries. We grind our own grain. We have massive distillation units. We have aging warehouses. We put it in a barrel just like everyone else. But as a final step, when we're ready to dump that barrel, we can do a couple different things. We can either just dump it and bottle it or send it on a tanker overseas or wherever that may be, or we can run it through our patented TerraPure process. And that's just a patented filtration process that allows us through ultrasonic energy and time and temperature and some different things where we can take a 1-year-old bourbon and make it taste like a 4-year-old bourbon in about 12 hours.
Oh, wow.
So 90% of all the bourbon consumed in the world is about 4 years old. So that's your Jim Beam White Labels, Evan Williams, products like that. So that TerraPure process allows us to kind of play in that big space, the 90% space. So that's primarily what we utilize.
So that process was used not just in Owensboro, but also used in their facilities somewhere else. I mean, what I'm saying is it's been tested and accepted process.
Right.
And everything.
It's so TerraCentra was founded in 2007.
Oh, okay.
In Charleston, South Carolina, and the gentleman that invented it, his name was Orville Zelotes Ty Tyler III.
Oh, that's the O.Z. Tyler comes in.
That's O.Z. Tyler. So he passed away about 5 or 6 years ago, and we named the distillery after him, O.Z. Tyler. So that's where the name comes from. And he was an inventor. He invented things like the lining on the inside of soda cans to keep the acid from reacting with the metal. Diet Right would have been the first one. He invented indoor-outdoor carpet, washable wallpaper, washable exterior paint. So he, being an inventor, when he retired, he loved 12-year-old Macallan Scotch, so it kind of drove him crazy on why he had to wait 12 years for his Scotch to age in a barrel. So after several different prototypes, he invented the TerraPure machine. We call it Rosie because it looks like Rosie from the Jetsons, the old cartoon they made. So he's the inventor of the process, and that's kind of where it comes from.
So that's the rest of the story about O.Z. Tyler.
That's the rest of the story.
And we're talking about bourbon. I love bourbon, and I've been on the bourbon trails and everything else. Now I think I got to reinvent because now we got additional, the westernmost, member of the bourbon trail. So, but your O.Z. Tyler whiskey, Owensboro has been known for the Glenmore and Medley and everything else. How has it been? How many different products do you have, and then how has it been, accepted by the customers across the state?
So our business is divided really into 3 parts. So we have a bulk alcohol business where we ship tankers of bourbon all over the world, Australia, New Zealand.
A tanker of bourbon.
Yeah, 6,000
They do the
tankers.
bottling down there.
They bottle it wherever it goes.
Okay.
Europe, all over the world. Then we do contract distillation for some other large major distilleries. And we have a private label business where we do a lot of bottling for big liquor store chains like Liquor Barn and Total Wine and More and ABC Liquors and places like that. And then we have our brand, which is a very, very small portion of what we do. We just launched it really in April. The O.Z. Tyler brand. So hopefully, right now we have a bourbon, we have a rye, and we have a honey flavor that'll soon be relaunched with Kentucky bourbon. But those are our 3 main flagships done at the distillery, and we'll see what happens later on. We may have some different brands and products that come out.
Now, people can purchase the Ozzy Tyler bourbon almost any liquor stores and everything else, and it's available everywhere.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's only sold in Kentucky,
I see. Okay.
but most of the major liquor stores have our products. We also have our gift shop. If you're in that area, you can
And it
pick
could be
up.
shipped anywhere too?
Well, yeah, they did change the shipping law, but
Right.
it has to be a reciprocal state.
I
So
see,
there's
I
maybe,
see.
I don't know, 7 or 8 states that allow reciprocal shipments of alcohol.
What about California?
I think that might be one of them, actually, because of the wine industry.
Ah, good, because my family's down there, so they always ask for the Ozzy Tyler bourbon, and I can't travel that often anyway. So yeah. So let's talk about the what happened recently. The kind of change. I mean, again, when people watching the show, they should, even though they have been there before, they should think about going back to the Ozzy Tyler, because all of a sudden now, you look like a tourist destination, Beautiful landscaping and a nice gift shop. Gonna comment on those,
Yeah, it's coming together. We did join the Kentucky Bourbon Trail June of this year, so as part of that, we had to dress the place up a little bit. So we have new parking lot, a lot of blacktop work being done, a lot of brick sidewalks everywhere. We have landscaping going in, and it definitely looks a lot different than it did when we first opened. We sort of have to make it like Disney World for adults now with all the tourists. So,
and so, do you already getting the Bourbon Trail folks coming in?
oh yeah,
Okay,
we're very
getting
busy.
the passport stamped and everything.
Yeah, they're getting their passport stamped. We're very busy. We sometimes have tour buses that pop in.
Oh, okay, that's great.
We do have our gift shop. We also have our event space.
I
Our
see.
event space, we have something like 40 or 50 events booked for the rest of this year already. So it's a great space for
What-
weddings,
okay.
corporate events, receptions, things like that.
Well, that's something good, because I was talking to a judge of ours, even out of Webster County, and telling about the, the Ozzy Tyler bourbon and everything. I've been driving to them when I come to a grad meeting. Can we just have a meeting sometime? So I may be
Sure.
calling on you to have a board of directors meeting for the 7 counties and have the meeting down there too.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, that'd be excellent. Now tell us about the volume. You mentioned about the tankers going to Europe and other places,
Right.
but what is it? How much has been produced?
Okay.
Here, I don't know what you measure in terms of
Really in
gallons or
barrels.
Barrels.
So when we first started distilling in 2016, we produced around 18,000 barrels.
That's-
And then we went through an expansion, and we'll make, starting September of 2017, we expanded. We'll make about 70,000 barrels of bourbon this
Wow.
year. We are looking very closely at another expansion, which, depending on how far we go, we'll either go to 85,000 barrels or 95,000. So right now, we're kind of somewhere in between the scale of in between Four Roses and Wild Turkey as far as scale.
Okay,
So
okay.
we're not a little micro distillery.
No, not anymore.
Yeah, we're up there with the big guys.
That is pretty good. Now you mentioned about sending tankers full of whiskey to other country and everything else. The recent buzz about the trade war between China and the U.S. and Canada and everything else, and they always bring, if that happens, impact in Kentucky will be on the bourbon and corn and soybean and everything else. So you're gonna you see some impact in the bourbon industry as well?
Tariffs, they're definitely not good
Right,
for the
right.
bourbon industry, especially when we get singled out and picked on.
Right.
But we have seen a little bit of impact, specifically in China, renegotiating some contracts because of the tariff. I did meet with one of Mitch McConnell's aides recently to express some hope that something could be done, but I'm not sure anything can be done at the moment.
Right,
So we're just trying to manage the situation and renegotiate if we have to.
Right.
But
right.
I expect we'll see a little bit of issues come from it.
Since you now got to be a pillar in Owensboro and everything, any kind of plans for a specialty bourbon coming up or something, or bottling or whatever?
Well, we're working on a little bit of a top secret
I like that.
deal with another institution in Owensboro. So I don't want to spill the beans yet, but maybe this fall you may see something come out.
Excellent.
With another tourist destination in Owensboro.
There you go. Jacob, thank you so much being on the show, and wish you best of luck. And I'm so excited about having the Uzi Tyler in Owensboro. And plus, looking forward to the big announcement in October, for, and it is a kind of tourist because my colleagues, also tell me, can we have an ad directors meeting in Owensboro so we can also get a chance to visit the Uzi Tyler bourbon. So, great. The word is out, So.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We've been talking to Jacob Call, the master distiller for the Uzi Tyler Distillery in Owensboro, about the distillery and some of the things happening there, and also, kind of how they got into the bourbon trail of Kentucky and got in the world market of tours and visits, people for the bourbon lovers, and as many of us are. Again, if you have any questions, you can always call me at the Grad office, or you can always call Jacob Call at the Uzi Tyler Bourbon in Owensboro. Thank you and have a great day. Hello and welcome to the Grad Dialogue. This afternoon, my guest is Anna Allen. She is a site director for the International Center of Resettlement Agency, or the Refugee Center. They have an office in Owensboro. So Anna, welcome on the Grad Dialogue. This is kind of new for the grad on the regular, what we do and everything else. However, it does affect the potential citizens of this region, and also protect potentially also the human that they're living in our cities and counties and everything else. And so I wanted to talk about what is the International Center for Owensboro, and how does it tie to overall refugee resettlement in Kentucky and also in this region. But before we do that, kind of tell us about yourself and what brought you to this topic and this office.
Well, I first wanted to get involved with refugee resettlement in 2011. I went on a mission trip with my church to Thailand. And while we were there, we were working with Burmese children who were rescued from sex trafficking.
I see.
And then that was kind of like, this is what I need to be doing with my life. So I came back here and I looked for ways to get involved, and here I am.
So when you said the site director for the International Center's Owensboro office, so it's like a chapter of something bigger and larger, and
yes, our main office is in Bowling Green.
I see.
And then we are like a smaller site office. So the Bowling Green office opened up in 1979.
Oh, wow.
And then Owensboro opened their doors in 2012. And we've got people coming from all over the world. I think we're up to about 30 different countries right now. And since 1979, we have helped resettle over 10,000 refugees, victims of human trafficking, asylees, parolees, and other people with similar statuses.
So what the Owensboro office, you're resettling some of the refugees, in Owensboro area, but does that include the other counties, other surrounding counties as well?
Yes, we have a 60-mile radius from our office that we can resettle people in.
So you do have an impact in Henderson County and
yes,
Bedford
Ohio County and Hancock County. Yes.
County. Yeah, well, that's great. When people think about refugees, they all talk about and I'm also foreigner, even though I've been here for 50 some years, but I'm from India and everything else. So these are the people who did not come voluntarily to do, with the family members or sponsored or even going to school or a job, but these are the people who had to come or leave their country because of some
correct
safety issues and everything else.
Right. So they're fleeing persecution or civil unrest. They have a good fear that if they stay where they're at, they will be persecuted or killed or tortured.
So tell us about what different countries that you guys are working with as far as the refugees are concerned, and some of the numbers as well, how many and what different group and everything.
Mostly we resettle people from, we've got mostly people coming in that are ethnic minorities from Myanmar. We also have some Somalis in here, and then we are going to start resettling Congolese. Our first Congolese family comes this month.
That's from Congo?
The Democratic Republic of Congo, yes. So we are very excited to receive them this month. Normally, Owensboro office usually does about 150 individuals every year. This year it has slowed down significantly. I think we are at about 30 right now.
Oh, I see.
Yes.
And that slow is just apprehension of people to leave and come to U.S.?
Oh, well, actually, we have a lot of people in the pipeline. We have a lot of people waiting to come here. It's with the administration and everything's
Right.
kind of slowing things down.
It's not because there is no more, need, or there is no
Oh,
more
no, we have
repression
currently,
or all those things.
there's currently about 66 million
I see.
displaced people in the world. About 22 million, or a third of them, would be considered for replacement and resettlement. Whenever they first apply for refugee status, UNHCR, they look at different categories. Like, first, can this person safely be resettled back in their home country? And if that's not an option, then they will look at, okay, can this person safely be resettled where they are at? And in some cases, that's not an option either, because maybe the country they fled to also has human rights violations.
Right.
So then, if neither of those options are okay, then they look at, okay, now this person qualifies to be resettled into a third country. And from that 66 million, about 22 million of them qualify.
So really, your job and your role is to resettle the refugees that been either assigned to Owensboro, to Bowling Green office, or some other international center or something like that. You don't get into the vetting process. All the vetting is done before they come to Owensboro.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
The vetting process is between 1.5 to 2 years long, just
I
for
see.
that process alone. It's a very, very long process to even get here. 22 million people waiting in line.
Right.
And so by the time we get them, the State Department has already compiled up their biodata. We know who they are. We'll know who their aunts and uncles and where they went to elementary school, if they did or not, what country they fled from. All that information is sent to us before they arrive here.
And this whole effort supported through the State Department when you mentioned that, or?
We work closely with the State Department and with the U.S. Committee for Refugees and Immigration. Both of them, there's about 8 different agencies involved in the vetting process alone. And then whenever they go through the vetting process, they will go to one of 9 voluntary agencies. And then those voluntary agencies will look at the case and see, okay, where is this person going to go? Right now, our voluntary agency is United States Committee for Refugees and Immigration. So they'll get a case and they'll say, okay, Owensboro might be a good fit for them. And then they will send me the biodata. I'll read the biodata, and if I think, okay, yes, this person's a good fit for Owensboro, then I'll assure the case to come here.
So who funds your efforts and the resettling efforts?
We have 2 main funding sources. One is through Catholic Charities, through the Kentucky Office of Refugees. And then the other one is through the United States Committee for Refugees and Immigration. And then they receive federal funds, and then they send those federal funds to us.
So I mean, even though somebody gone through the human rights violation in their country, and they would like to want to be a refugee resettlement program, it may take a long time before they get qualified and come back here.
It's not unusual for us to have adults who are born in refugee camps come in.
Something. Wow.
Yes.
And during that time, they're still struggling, in their country and everything else.
Yes, they can be in the refugee camps for 20 years.
Oh, wow. So let's just talk about the kind of short time that we have. Is that what happens? I think once you get a numbers and the files of 30 this year of the potential resettlement refugees for Owensboro office, then how do you resettle them? Where do you resettle them? And then are the children's with that? What do you do with those things? And also, how do you provide the bringing them to American culture from their own culture of everything else? That's a big big
yes,
job.
it is.
Yeah.
Yes,
for a foreigner, I know it's not that easy either.
Yes, we have a wide variety of services that help them. Not just in the resettlement process, but also with integration and assimilation into their new community. So we will, whenever I have the travel notice that, okay, this person is coming in, we immediately start looking for an apartment for them. We start discussing with the staff and what programs would be good for this family. We will go meet them at the airport, pick them up, take them to the apartment. Usually we have donated items for like couches and furniture and stuff. They will go through and teach them, okay, this is the light switch, this is the thermostats, all of this other stuff. And then we have 90 days, which is the resettlement and placement process. And through that 90 days, we're getting their social security cards, we're getting their legal documents so they can work. They're going through career counseling, they're going through job placement, cultural orientation classes, ESL enrollment, so they're enrolled in English as a second language classes, school enrollment for the children. And then beyond the 90 days, we also have other educational, employment, and housing and other social services that we provide for them beyond that.
So I think people got to understand that when they come to Owensboro as a refugee, they're already they're legal in a sense.
Yes.
Yes, they're not illegal.
Yes, they already have legal status when they come here. Yes. They are vetted and they have legal status before they even enter the U.S.
So how can you gauge success? And I mean, it's not a bad word, but no, you're not trying to be successful. You're just trying to provide somebody a resettlement and everything else. So I mean, how would you feel like, gosh, and this is great, we succeeded to making somebody's life more fulfilled and more productive and everything?
Well, our goal for everything is self-sufficiency.
Self-sufficiency.
So if the client is self-sufficient, if they're doing well, if they're adjusting, then we feel like, okay, we're successful. They're able to provide for their family, they're able to stand on their own 2 feet. They feel comfortable here, they feel welcomed. We also look at that. That's a big part of it, which I'm really thankful. Owensboro is a very welcoming community. So that's mostly what we.
Wow. No, but you mentioned the Owensboro very welcoming communities, but I'm sure at the same time, let's face it, I think you might have heard some of the negative comments too. Not because of those refugees that you are trying to resettle them, but what is in the news, what happened somewhere else. I mean, how it is one bad apple kind of spoils the whole thing and all those things. So how do you communicate to the general population, or who do you communicate with? Because I think ultimately you had to get a support from the community and the folks to resettle them for education or even for jobs and everything.
Well, we provide services also to the Owensboro community at large, and one of those services is going through and giving cultural training. So if any group, church group or an organization or a school, and they want information on who our clients are and how they came here, we will send somebody to them and we will give them a training. We'll talk about our clients, the struggles that they face. We'll talk about why they're here, give some cultural background for them. We also do community engagement events as much as we can. We'll be at the Multicultural Festival.
Oh, great.
Yes, so we'll have a booth there, so look for us there. And then we also have our World Refugee Day, which we just completed. We do this every year in June, and it's to celebrate all of our clients. Our clients from all over the world come in and they showcase their culture through music and food and art and dancing. And that is open to the community, so anybody can come to that.
So it's been a lot of positive interaction between the community and the refugees in your office as well.
Yes, there is. And then the Welcome Project, which is a nonprofit that's next door to us, and that's run by Dr. James Litzy. He goes and talks to churches and gets church groups to sort of be the mentor to a new case and walk them through their first 90 days. So if anybody is interested in being a mentor, they can let us know and we'll try to set them up with that.
And how long do you stay in touch with them? How long the follow-up occurs on individual
clients?
refugees? Yes.
Well, the first 90 days, it's almost every day that we are with them. Beyond that, they're probably still enrolled in certain programs for at least the next year. And so then we're still kind of staying in close contact with them with that. And after that, it's more like as needed. So if they need something, whether it's 2 years later or whatever, they can come in and we will still offer them services.
But they're legal resident and legal, and by that time, legally they can just, I guess, on their own to be self-sufficiency.
Right, we try to get them self-sufficient within that first year. So
it's excellent. I think it's a great program and a great thing that is needed. I mean, we like it or not, or which party you believe in, everything else, there is always, unfortunately, going to be, some oppression around human rights violations. And, there's always going to be some refugees that would rather a better life somewhere else, either here or some other country or so. And an agency like yours and people like you make that connections and make it, great for themselves and the family. I want to really admire what you're doing.
Thank you.
And, wish you best of luck.
Thank
and,
you.
And hopefully we can help anyway. Let us know too, because we've seen the Miramar and the citizens, not in Owensboro, all other counties as well. We're working in different jobs and everything else. So.
Yes, we would love to help them out. You can send them our way.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We've been talking to Anna Allen. She's a site director for the International Refugee Center in Owensboro. It's kind of working with the center in Bowling Green and do help people to resettle in our region. And also provide all the follow-up services and the needs they may have, to have proper settlements and become a self-sufficient citizen of Kentucky. Again, thank you. And if you have any question, you can always contact the center. What's the telephone number?
It's 270-683-3423.
All right. And or if not, you can always call me at the Grad office. Thank you and have a great day.